The morning sun had barely risen when the knock came, a sharp, unexpected echo that sliced through the silence of the small, cluttered living room where Kieran Hale sat half-collapsed on the couch, wearing yesterday's shirt and staring blankly at the untouched cereal he had poured for his 6-year-old son. The knock came again, louder this time, as if insisting on being heard, as if refusing to let him escape the world he had spent months trying to avoid. Kieran's heart tightened, because instinctively he knew it wasn't a neighbor, nor a delivery, nor anyone he felt ready to face. And when he opened the door to find Alira, his ex-wife's younger sister, standing there with worry in her eyes and a trembling breath, he felt the ground shift beneath his feet. 2 months after the divorce had ended everything he thought he was, she was the last person he expected at his door. She wasn't there with hostility nor judgment. She was there with something far heavier, something that would unravel every truth he thought he knew. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected connections, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Spark. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts. Kieran had spent the last 2 months learning how empty a home could feel. Since the divorce from Naira, the woman he once believed would be his forever, life had blurred into a repeating loop of exhaustion. Balancing long shifts at the printing warehouse, making rushed meals that rarely turned out right, handling homework with a brain too tired to think, and trying not to cry in front of his son Jace, who had grown quieter since his mother walked out. The house was always bright during daytime because Kieran kept every window uncovered, telling himself the sunlight would make things feel less heavy, but in truth it only exposed how much life was missing. He had lost not just a partner, but a sense of direction, a version of himself that used to believe stability was permanent. When Alira stepped into the living room, her eyes softened at the mess, a scattered blanket, a half-read bedtime book, shoes on the floor. She wasn't judging, she looked heartbroken by what she saw. Kieran felt embarrassed, but too drained to pretend that everything was fine. She didn't ask why the house looked like this, she already knew. Naira hadn't just left him, she had distanced herself from her own family, refusing to talk to Alira or their parents, insisting that she needed a fresh start without any of the ties that once shaped her. Alira now stood before Kieran because she was desperate to understand what had pushed her sister away from everyone all at once. As sunlight poured in through the windows, Kieran felt exposed, sharing the truth. He explained how Naira had grown restless in their final year of marriage, how she felt suffocated by responsibilities, how she had begun describing motherhood as a burden rather than a blessing, and how she had accused Kieran of holding her back from the life she believed she deserved. Kieran had fought to save the marriage, but Naira had already decided that she was meant for something else, something without them. When she requested the divorce, she didn't cry, didn't hesitate. And when she left, she didn't even pack all her things. She simply vanished from the world she no longer recognized as hers. Alira's shoulders sank as she listened. It shattered her more than it shattered him, because for years she had looked up to her older sister as the epitome of strength and purpose. She had admired Naira's confidence, her ambition, her ability to lead a room. But she never imagined that her sister would abandon her own son, or that Kieran would be left with everything Naira didn't want to carry. As she watched Jace sit quietly at the kitchen table, swinging his legs and tracing patterns in the cereal milk, she felt tears sting her own eyes. She knelt beside him, gently brushing his hair behind his ear, promising herself she wouldn't let him feel forgotten. In the days that followed her visit, Alira kept returning, first with groceries, then with fresh clothes for Jace, then with a stack of simple recipes written on pastel index cards for Kieran to try. She would sit at the dining table while Jace doodled beside her, and she encouraged Kieran to talk, not about Naira, but about the version of himself he wanted to rebuild. She had always been the quieter sister, the one who stood behind rather than in front, but in Kieran's sunlit kitchen she stepped into a role she hadn't expected, the gentle presence holding a fractured home together. Kieran didn't understand why she cared so much. He had assumed her loyalty belonged only to her sister. But Alira saw what Naira never bothered to look at. How tirelessly he loved, how deeply he tried, how fiercely he believed in family even after his own had been ripped apart. She admired him not because he was flawless, but because he was still standing, despite the storm that had nearly destroyed him. And slowly, Kieran began to notice the small changes she brought into the house. A fresh plant on the windowsill that made the room feel alive, a new set of plates that didn't have chips along the edges, a daily warmth that filled the spaces Naira left empty. But change came with conflict. Word spread to Naira, who contacted Kieran for the first time in weeks, accusing him of manipulating Alira, of turning her sister against her, of trying to replace her. Kieran didn't argue. Arguing was what broke them before. Instead, he simply told her the truth. Alira was helping because she cared, not because he asked her to. It was the first time Naira heard a firmness in him, a strength she never expected. She hung up in silence, unable to face what she had lost. Alira, on the other hand, continued appearing in the daylight hours with a quiet reliability. There was no romantic intention in the beginning, no underlying expectation, only a genuine desire to support someone who had been wronged by circumstances beyond his control. But as she watched Kieran learn to recap water bottles before placing them in Jace's lunch bag, or fix Jace's wobbly bike wheel in the backyard under the afternoon sun, or stand at the sink washing dishes with exhaustion etched into every muscle, her heart tugged in ways she didn't know how to describe. She didn't fall for him because he was broken. She fell for him because he kept showing up, every single day, no matter how tired he was. One warm Saturday afternoon, when the sunlight bathed the living room in soft gold,